The even split of quarterback reps between Cam Ward and Will Levis clearly died last week. We'll talk about that, plus more losers from Tennessee Titans mandatory minicamp on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, Titans fans. Today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, we're going to take a look at my losers from Tennessee Titans mandatory minicamp. We're going to talk about some injury situations. We're going to talk about some of the linebackers that are falling back in the race, but we'll start with the fact that this even split of reps between Will Levis and Cam Ward absolutely died last week, and we don't have to entertain that topic anymore. Before we dive into all of it, though, I do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. If you want to check out my winners from mandatory minicamp, I talked about that on yesterday's show, so go check that out. But do want to give a shout out to my everydayers out there. Turning it in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one because it may be all season for the Tennessee Titans, but there is no all season for Locked On Titans. So your team every day. Get subscribed. Stay subscribed. All that being said, the big loser out of mandatory minicamp, in my opinion, the biggest loser is anybody who truly thought that the Tennessee Titans should split reps evenly between Will Levis and Cam Ward at mandatory minicamp. All along, throughout the entire offseason process, since they got on the field and started doing OTAs in the middle of May, I have said consistently, without any variance, that the Titans are just saying that the even split thing is whatever during these voluntary workouts. Once things actually matter and into mandatory minicamp, you have to stop playing this game, having this charade, then we're going to split everything evenly. All right, Cam Ward's got to earn it. I've continuously said Cam Ward earned it by being the number one overall pick. Will Levis lost it by playing so poorly the Titans got the number one pick, and playing so poorly the Titans felt compelled to take a quarterback number one overall. Cam Ward is going to be your starting quarterback this year. You need to get him ready for the season. He needs the most reps. We aren't going to play this game, or the Titans shouldn't play this game, where we make Cam Ward earn it. No, that's stupid. It's juvenile. You already gave it away. Like, the plot is spoiled. We already know how this goes. You're only fooling yourself by making Cam Ward earn it and by giving Will Levis and Cam Ward even reps in the moments that do matter, like mandatory minicamp where the full team is together. It's not voluntary OTAs anymore, where all four quarterbacks are getting even reps and passing around. No, this is mandatory minicamp. We're seeing who is taking advantage of the offseason, who knows the plays, who knows where to be, who can make plays even in the no pad situation, who is going to make plays, who's going to know where to be, who's going to work the hardest, who's going to be the best teammate. Like, these are all things that we need to see. And in this environment, where it's a competitive environment with the defense against the offense and 7-on-7 and 11s, it is as close to a training camp practice as the Titans have had since the end of the season. In that environment, we cannot play this game anymore where Cam Ward has to earn it. So I always thought it was silly when anybody said, hey, the Titans should keep this going. They should make him absolutely earn it, and they should go into training camp and have a true competition and also there were people who you got Adam Schefter out there tweeting, Brian Callahan has said he's going to give Will Levis and Cam Ward even reps, like during the OTAs. The national media was clearly trying to drum this up to be a true competition. And I have said all along, steadfast throughout the process, that the Titans are just saying this. It's a smart thing to say. Keep Will Levis's head in the game. Keep Will Levis's value as high as you possibly can, although it's incredibly low, and we all know that. There's no reason to say anything other than that, but when we get out on the field, when it really matters, we can't play that game. And that's exactly what the Titans did. Cam Ward got by far the most reps. Cam Ward got starting quarterback reps. Will Levis got backup reps, which I also said, hey, I'm not saying I don't want Will Levis to get any reps. Will Levis needs to put on a good performance in the preseason or in training camp or in joint practices with these teams if we hope to get a trade for Will Levis before the season starts. So I don't want Will Levis to get no reps. He should get the backup whatever you think the backup quarterback should get, Brian Callahan, that's what Will Levis should get. And whatever the starting quarterback would normally get, that's what Cam Ward should get. And that's exactly what happened. So this even split narrative that people tried to push or that some people believed, it's dead. That is the big loser. Now, what I will say is, we talk about individual players here who were quote-unquote losers. I mean, I'm not being like, you're a loser. You know what I mean? Like, losers, stock down, I guess, is the nice way to play this game. But whatever, man. Winners, losers. Tighten up, tighten down is really what I should have went with. But whatever. You guys know the game. But the first player that I want to talk about here, it's clearly L'Jarius Sneed. Still not healthy. Rehabbing 2 injuries simultaneously at the same time. It's not just, hey, we're doing regular maintenance on the knee and, you know, the quad is good to go. It's healthy. It's back to normal. No, we're still rehabbing the quad and we're rehabbing the knee that was already bad to get it back to good. It's not a good situation. It's not. And, you know, it's something that I said a couple of weeks ago, but I'll just reiterate it here. I am just having a very difficult time seeing L'Jarius Sneed give the Titans anything. Like for him to come back this year and play, 15 games, 14 games, and be a solid starter for the Titans, I just cannot see that. I don't see a path where this doesn't end just miserably. He gets hurt again, or he just never comes back. He just sits out the entire season. Or by the time he gets healthy, the NFL has done their investigation to his off-field situation. And, maybe I said that he wasn't going to be suspended before the season for this season. The NFL just doesn't work that fast. They let things play out. But if he's not healthy, and he starts on PUP and he doesn't come back until Halloween or into November, maybe that is enough time. I don't know. That's pure speculation. I'm not a lawyer. But, again, not participating, still rehabbing a major injury that he had, what was it? Week 6 against the Colts is when it happened. Week 6 of last year. Still not on the field. Doesn't seem close. If he's not ready to participate in side field, indies, stretch period, if he's not able to do anything at the start of training camp and he's still rehabbing both injuries, the same update they gave us for mandatory minicamp, it is time to panic a little bit about the Titans cornerback position. And that's something on tomorrow's show. We are going to talk about the biggest questions remaining for the Tennessee Titans after we know what we know coming out of mandatory minicamp. And best believe that one of the conversations we are going to be having is about cornerback. Because just for a moment, a brief moment right now, imagine if L'Jarius Sneed just did not play this year, and then the Titans had to cut him after the year. And think about cornerback. So, jump scare right there. Sorry about that. But with that in mind, let's talk about these linebackers, because L'Jarius Sneed is an obvious loser, but you know what the other truth is? The Titans are the big loser in the L'Jarius Sneed situation, and it could be the worst move that Ran Carthon ever made. But again, we got to talk about some other losers on the defense as well. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Look, there's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live, and this year's matchup is already delivering. If you want in, Gametime makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off. They have killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, no surprise fees. Gametime is a total game changer. I buy all my tickets on Gametime. I purchased NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLB, comedy, concerts. I purchased it all on Gametime because, again, they have the best features in the industry, and that includes the Gametime guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We have talked about the quarterback competition, the even split of reps being officially dead for the Tennessee Titans as one of the big losers. Sneed struggles as well. But now I want to get into some of the position battles. And we talked about some of the winners in some of these situations on yesterday's episode. Again, go back and check that out if you missed it. But some of the losers in those situations have been pretty obvious as well. Now, before I dive in, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Again, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday on tomorrow's show, looking at biggest questions remaining for the Tennessee Titans. Thursday's show, we're going to look at what the schedule for the rest of the offseason leading into the regular season kickoff is going to be for the Titans. And then I'll be doing a mailbag at the end of the end of this week's shows, and then Division Rival Week is next week. So much content planned for you guys. Again, it's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But big losers are the other two young linebackers. One of my big winners yesterday was James Williams, the 7th round, second-year linebacker out of Miami, converted safety. I think he has jumped to the front of the line for the linebacker spot next to Cody Barton. And that means that the two people who lost the most here have been Cedric Gray and Otis Reese. So with Otis Reese, the calculation is simple. You're the oldest of those three players, James Williams, Cedric Gray, Otis Reese, the oldest. You have the least investment because you're an undrafted free agent on an exclusive rights free agent deal. So there's a least amount of investment compared to two guys who are younger than you and were draft picks. And not only that, but Otis Reese has not shown to this point in his career that he can be an every down linebacker. At this point, it looks like he might be just more of a special teams, end of the roster, linebacker 4-5 type player. And listen, the Titans need that too. So Otis Reese can have a role here in this program no matter what. But I just don't think right now, with all of those factors against him, and then him being injured. Otis Reese missed some time with injury during the mandatory minicamp. And with all of those odds stacked against him and all of those investment, talent, upside, youth, with all of those factors going against him compared to the other two guys, to also miss time with injury, I just don't think Otis Reese is going to recover. I don't think that he's going to recover from that to regain the starting linebacker spot. My prediction all along throughout the offseason has been James Williams. So you can call it, bias, self-fulfilling prophecy. I want whoever is best for the Titans. And we talked about James Williams and why he's a big winner and everything we heard about him. But I remember one comment. So Otis Reese, the injury, those factors. But we go to Cedric Gray, and I remember one comment from Buck Rising on the very first day. Or it might have been day 2. Cedric Gray scooped up a fumble. Cam Ward tried to pitch it on a reverse to Chimdike. Bad pitch, miscommunication, ball on the ground. Cedric Gray falls on it. And I know some of you guys don't like Buck, whatever, But he said that's the first play, splash play of any kind that I can remember Cedric Gray making in a full team situation. Now, you guys always say I read into stuff too much, and maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But when a guy who is at practice all the time and has seen Cedric Gray and knows how popular the linebacker discussion is, for him to make the comment that that's the first big play that he's basically ever seen Cedric Gray make out here, to me, that tells you something. To me, that's insight in a way where if you read between the lines on that, that's, hey, Cedric Gray is not making plays. He's not making plays. And then other than that play, none of the practice takeaways, none of the practice reports, none of the big plays for the defense. That, like, you just don't hear about Cedric Gray at all. Now, it's disappointing. I was high on Cedric Gray. I thought they got good value getting him in the 4th round. I thought his ability as an athlete to be in coverage, but also fly sideline to sideline and make tackles, like, I thought he had a chance to be a player. But at this point, with the setback that he had last year, early on with the injury, he got a bad start. And I think James Williams is a more talented player. He just had a bigger learning curve because he was a converted safety. But James Williams was a 5-star prospect. James Williams is bigger, stronger than Cedric Gray. So I think it's obvious that James Williams is the winner and Cedric Gray and Otis Reese are losers coming out of mandatory minicamp. Now, on the other side of the ball, similar situation. We talked about the winners yesterday being the rookie pass catchers who really shined, really showed up, looked to be ahead of the curve and ahead of the schedule in terms of, them getting into the playbook, them knowing where to be, their versatility to move around, and they are all locked in. I went over the quote from Tyke Tolbert, Titans wide receiver coach, about how all those guys have been in the building at 5 a.m. watching film with the quarterback, blah, blah, blah. They are the culture setters and the football personality guys that they were sold to us as. They are that, it appears. Well, I'm sorry, but that means that there are some losers who are getting replaced. And this is how it works in the NFL. You crap or you get off the pot, And a guy like Treylon Burks, a guy like Josh Wiley, a guy like Jaquan Jackson, Colton Dow. These guys are in trouble. It's not looking good for him. Why would you take an older player who hasn't shown anything over these young guys who not only do they look to be guys who are making plays out on the field more often than these other guys, but they're guys who you said are culture-setting guys. Why would you play Jaquan Jackson over Xavier Restrepo? Why would you play Colton Dow over Alec Iomanner? Why would you play Treylon Burks over Chim Dike? Why would you play Josh Wiley over Gunnar Helm? Why would you do that? So when they get out on the field and we get these reports and we see at practice who's making plays and who's doing what, when you see the guys who are making more plays also be the guys who are younger, it's like, oh, the other guys are screwed. And I just have a hard time. Josh Wiley, I think, makes the team. I do think Josh Wiley makes the football team. There's no way that he's going to play more than Gunnar Helm. And Treylon Burks, everybody was dogging him, saying he looked heavy, he looked slow. Guys, he's coming back from an ACL tear last year. I know that Treylon Burks should be given no benefit of the doubt. Treylon Burks should have no benefit of the doubt. I get that. I'm on board with that. I'm with you. I've been calling him the ghost of Treylon Burks for 2 off seasons because you just have to operate as if he does not exist. But it is somewhat cruel to, poke fun at him when he's not participating in team activities because he's not back enough. He's just going through individual drills, trying to get back in shape. Now, Brian Callahan said he's ahead of schedule. He expects him to be ready to go for training camp. If he looks like that in training camp, then you have all right to do whatever you want at that point. But right now, it just kind of felt like, come on, man. Duh, he looks heavy and out of shape. He is, but regardless of that, he's still a big-time loser from this mandatory minicamp because, because, the more that the young guys perform, 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 the more that the young guys the less it makes sense to give Treylon Burks an opportunity to be on the team. You know, like it just doesn't make any sense. It's the last year of his contract. It's time to move on. But with that being said, there are some guys who are losers, quote unquote, losers, Titan Downs. But it's not because they played poorly out on the field. It's injury situations. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, doing my quote-unquote losers, my Titan Downs, from the Titans mandatory minicamp. Again, did winners yesterday, my Titan Ups. You can go check that out. Tomorrow, biggest questions remaining for the Titans, and then Titans schedule going forward leading up to week 1 kickoff, and then mailbag. So a lot of content coming your way. Can't wait to dive into all of it with you guys. But finishing off my losers here. Number 1, Dan Moore. So the Titans gave Dan Moore $20 million a year to be their franchise left tackle in the offseason, and I got to be honest with you, I am skeptical of that being a good decision. I understand the need for left tackle. I understand what it has the potential to do to solidify the Tennessee Titans offensive line. I get it. You move J.C. Latham to right tackle. He can become one of the best right tackles in the NFL. You get a league average left tackle in that should massively improve both your offensive tackle spots in a big-time way. I understand the vision. I see it. I understand. I'm just skeptical that Dan Moore's good enough to fulfill that. I'm skeptical that Dan Moore is good enough to check that box. And if Dan Moore doesn't check that box for the money that the Titans paid him, that's a pretty punitive contract for the next couple of years. At least 2 years. It's going to be tough. And then you're going to have some dead money, double-digit dead money in the third year if you get rid of him after 2 years. So it could go very poorly. If Dan Moore gives up the most sacks in the NFL, again, which he just did last year, he was on his rookie contract for Pittsburgh. Now he's making $20 million a year. That's devastating. If you have just as bad of an offensive tackle spot as you had the last couple of years, but now you're paying $20 million for it instead of having NPF, Jalen Duncan on rookie contracts, or, Andre Dillard, Dennis Daly, David Questenberry, blah, on these value contracts. Now you're giving a big time contract to a guy who's still terrible. That would be a disaster, okay? So I was skeptical. I remain skeptical. But regardless, I want Dan Moore out on the field. And he got injured on day 2 of mandatory minicamp, and then he did not participate on day 3. Now, we have no idea whether this is a freaking, his right arm fell off his body, or whether it's a sprained ankle. Like, we have no idea if he sprained a pinky toe or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know what it is. He could have a sinus infection. I'm battling through, all right? Dan Moore could have a sinus infection, and they just say, don't worry about it, Dan. Like, just take the day off. That could happen. $20 million left tackle. Who cares? Okay? But we don't know. So now what we have to do is we just have to hope and worry and think and speculate. Was it a serious injury? Do the Titans maybe need to go out and sign somebody, for training camp and get somebody in there to push some of these young guys? Like, all they have is Ali Udoh, who's the veteran guy who's had starting experience. Then you have John Ojukwu, Jalen Duncan, Brendan Crenshaw-Dixon, the undrafted free agent out of Florida. Maybe Blake Hance can play some offensive tackle as well, who the Titans signed as an interior guy, but he's got tackle versatility. He's a bigger-bodied guy. So do we have to start having those conversations? We just don't know. So with that in mind, with that uncertainty, you never want to see a guy get hurt and then not come back the next day, period. But now with the uncertainty of the next 5-6 weeks wondering about how bad that injury is or what's going on, that makes it a losing situation. Dan Moore is a loser in this because of how it ended. And now we have to wonder, I hate that. But with that in mind, along with Dan Moore, and it pains me to say this, but I hope you guys understand, Kevin Winston is a bit of a loser here too. We knew he tore his ACL, and, what was it? College football is weird because there's a week 0, so I don't know. Is it week 2? Is it week 3? Was it third game, fourth game, second game? He played against West Virginia, I think it was, and then he tore his ACL. Okay? So early in the college football season, he ran a 40-yard dash at the Penn State Pro Day before the draft, so clearly he's not totally unable to move around and do stuff, but the Titans are going to bring him along slowly. So I'm not saying that Kevin Winston not participating wasn't the expectation. It is the expectation that he wasn't. But being a rookie, great opportunity to get out there, and just him missing it, we'll call it a loser. It's not a significant problem. It's not like he played poorly, or he'll probably be ready for training camp, be good to go, and be out there. But it's still an opportunity lost for a rookie that I have very high hopes for. So I just wanted to see Kevin Winston on the field. He did work on the side field, I think, a little bit or something like that, or he might not have participated at all. I got to go back and check my notes. I think there was some side field work, but he's not out there fully, not getting the reps. And honestly, the Titans need Kevin Winston. He should be significantly better than Mike Brown, who's their third safety right now. And outside of the top 2 safeties, Mike Brown's okay. Julius Wood, I don't really, think he's going to make a difference. So the Titans need a fourth decent safety with Mike Brown and Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods. And then I think Kevin Winston, by the end of the season, should be the third safety and could actually be a guy who makes an impact. So just, I'm salty personally, I guess, that he's not ready to be out there. Not at him, just at the situation, because this was the expectation. But I was hoping maybe he could find a way to get out there. But with that being said, again, we're going to look at the biggest questions remaining for the Tennessee Titans on tomorrow's show. Make sure that you guys tune in for that. Shout out to my everydayers. That's going to do it for me today, though, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.